For this lecture, we're going to take a little bit of a look at the endocrine system. So we're just going to basically look at a little bit of the introductory portion. So we're going to look at a little bit of the types of hormones as well as their activation as well in the body. So let's go ahead and kind of jump into these. So the endocrine system actually functions as a secondary messenger system in the body. The initial messenger system mostly is our nervous system, but the endocrine system can also function in tandem with the nervous system. Different from the nervous system, which is sending electrical signals, the endocrine system sends its signals chemically in the forms of hormones. Those hormones have to travel through the blood to reach their specific target sites. Each hormone has a specific target. And those targets usually are specific cells located sometimes on other endocrine organs or other organs themselves. Hormones can control several different processes in the body. You can see them here. They are reproduction, growth and development, mobilization of body defenses, so immune system responses, maintenance of homeostasis, so being able to maintain blood pressure, water retention, could be blood cells themselves in production, and also regulate metabolism specifically. Hormones, again, are going to be produced by these specialized cells that we find in these what are called endocrine glands. Most of those hormones are going to secrete that hormone into the extracellular fluid around them. Once they're secreted into the fluid, they can be picked up and transferred in the bloodstream to, again, these target sites. Hormones then can regulate the regular activity of those cells. As long as the gland is producing hormones at the proper level, those will continue to regulate those organs in a proper manner. There are a couple different types of hormone chemistries. So hormones can be made of proteins, peptides, or what are called amines. They can also be made of steroids or a fourth category here, which are called prostaglandins. Steroids, again, are going to be mostly cholesterol based, and the prostaglandins, again, are also lipid based. So you can see a couple different examples here. Hormones are only going to affect those target sites. They only bond with receptors on the outsides of those organs. They can't bond with other organs. Okay, so the target cells have specific receptor proteins. Those are those receptor sites. And they will bond with those based on that process. Okay. Let's see. Sorry. We have to, so other ways that the hormone can actually change that process, okay, is by binding specifically to the plasma membrane or changing the plasma membrane permeability of the cell, or changing the electrical state of that cell. It can help us synthesize proteins and make specifically enzymes. And then in some cases, those enzymes can simply be activated or inactivated. So switched on or switched off, essentially. And then they can also stimulate the process of mitosis. This is one of the reasons why, like cancers and some of the newer cancer research is being developed to look at specific hormone activation. Because if we can't switch on or switch off mitosis, that could be one of the issues that we have going on here. Okay, steroid hormone action. All right, so steroids can actually diffuse through the plasma membrane of the target cells, and their main place that they're going to is the nucleus. All right, they're going to bind with some specific proteins within that nucleus, and then they're going to usually tell the cell's DNA to start doing things, specifically switch on genes or switch off genes or produce specific proteins. Okay. So this is just a little bit of a demonstration of how that process takes place. So the hormone would make its way to the target cell. All right, the hormone can actually make it into the cytoplasm, so across the lipid bilayer on the outside or the cell membrane. It will then make its way into the nucleus, bond with a specific protein inside of that, which will then switch on a section of DNA. If you remember back to bio, or if you're in AP bio right now, you guys might be talking a little bit about this. It will make a piece of mRNA or messenger RNA, and then that piece of mRNA will then be read and make a specific protein. All right. Non-steroidal hormone action is a little bit different. So they actually bond to the outside of the cell. They do not enter and get inside of the nucleus. All right. And what they're trying to do is set off essentially a series of reactions that activate the enzymes inside of the cell. they're going to then usually cause a catalyst to produce a secondary messenger molecule. All right. And then they simply will just continue to oversee that process until the changes meet whatever the response was needed. Okay. So this is what it looks like. You can see the non-steroidal hormone just attaches to a receptor on the outside of the cell, activates an enzyme, and then that enzyme will cause something to happen inside of the cell. Could cause it to speed up the process of making ATP, could cause it to create another specific protein inside of the cell. But again, it's not going to bond with inside of the cell. All right. There are three basic ways of gland activation. Okay, this is pretty important, so I would make sure you kind of jot this one down. This a lot of times will show up as kind of either a short answer question or specific questions on the assessment itself. So there is neural, which is nerve impulses, so they're activated by a nerve impulse. There's hormonal, which can be activated by another hormone. So a lot of times the pituitary gland will secrete hormones that activate other endocrine glands within the body, or they can be humoral, which are activated by levels inside of the blood. So if the hormone drops inside of the blood, that will activate the gland to secrete more hormones. Or there could be a specific chemical in the bloodstream, say like glucose, right? Glucose, the level of glucose in our system would trigger the pancreas then to secrete insulin, which would lower it, or the opposite would happen. If we don't have enough glucose, we could secrete glucagon, and that would create our liver to release more glucose, okay? So again, make sure you jot these down and kind of take a look at them. All right. This is just a little bit of a demonstration of how that looks. So this is hormonal stimulus. So this is stimulus by another hormone. Like I was saying, the pituitary gland does that quite often. This is where endocrine glands are stimulated by other hormones. So the pituitary gland, especially the anterior pituitary, secretes hormones that can activate the thyroid, the adrenals, as well as the specifically the gonads, the testes. So each one of those won't secrete if the pituitary gland itself isn't secreting. Right. So sometimes people can have issues with one of these three organs, but the actual problem could be traced back to the pituitary itself. It could be damage, could be a tumor on the pituitary, but any one of those could create that problem. All right. Humoral changes, again, these are looking at changes inside of the levels in the blood. These guys are really mostly regulated by negative and positive feedback systems, specifically negative. So they're just looking for a specific level inside of the blood. So this example over here is calcium. All right. So the thyroid senses how much calcium is in the system. The parathyroid specifically triggers that level to secrete a hormone called PTH. It's called parathyroid hormone. That parathyroid hormone can then cause calcium to be uptaked by bones or released by the bones. All right. So people that have issues with that sometimes have issues with bone density. Especially as we get older, a lot of times women specifically can have an issue with this because their thyroid is hugely affected as we age. Okay. Last one then is neural. This is simply just done by release from the sympathetic nervous system. Okay. So the CNS, the cerebral central nervous system, is going to send that out and cause a release of that hormone. So it's going to be activated by that. Mostly, I think here, fight or flight syndrome. Okay. Control of hormone release. So hormone levels in the blood are maintained by negative feedback. A stimulus of lower hormone levels in the blood trigger the release of the hormone. All right. So again, drops too low, we secrete it. We continue to secrete it until that level is reached back the other way. Again, that standard negative feedback system, sort of like the thermostat in your house. We're just looking for a level. If we don't have that level, we'll release until we get it. Once we get that level, the release is stopped. Okay. Location of major glands and of the endocrine system, you just kind of see a basic overview of them here. Again, there's quite a few of them up here at the base of the brain. So we have both the hypothalamus, which the hypothalamus actually controls parts of the pituitary. There's another little guy back here called the pineal gland. Right here in the throat is your thyroid, and attached to the sides of the thyroid are the parathyroid. There's another one here just below the sternum called the thymus. On top of both of your kidneys are your adrenal glands. And then you have your pancreas here that sits just below your stomach. So your stomach would sit about right in here. Liver sits over the top, all right? But your pancreas is right in here. And then depending on gender, ovaries would be here in the pelvis, and then testes usually are external outside of the pelvis. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and stop there with that section.